Well, okay, that was an interesting finale, and it felt like a finale that was of two halves. The opening section in the first half of the episode was something that I thought was actually pretty good and some of the best moments that this season had produced. It was intense, the stakes were high, and Emma Roberts delivered a really strong performance. But then in the second half, I think the episode just started to lose itself, and the 30-minute runtime came back to get it because it could have done with a bit more time to elaborate on the story to give it a bit more fluidity. But anyway, with an ending that was rather ambiguous and revelations all throughout, let's jump into this episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is American Horror Story Delicate Episode 9 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. In this section, I just want to discuss the final 5 minutes or so, and then I'll get into the motive of the group and why they were doing what they were doing. But this ending needs a big discussion. Right at the end of the episode, we saw that the ghost of Adeline appeared, and as she turned Anna around in her wheelchair, she was speaking and worshipping Hestia, the very goddess that she was worshipping on the night where she was killed, with Anna also repeating the phrase out loud. Adeline then said, "Only light can snuff out the dark." Then following this, Siobhan essentially began to age, disintegrate, and then the rest of the Ravenheads and Satan worshippers all disappeared too. I have a bit of a problem with this considering that Siobhan had seemed to have been around for an extremely long time, as early as 42 AD. Why had nobody ever done that before? And whether she was sent back to hell or was killed for good, it's a weakness that definitely took away from the power that it was made out like she had and was built up throughout the entirety of the episode, as it didn't actually take that much at all for her to be wiped out. Plus, I also don't really understand why Siobhan had no defense at all. Yeah, I get the age-old cliché of light winning over darkness, but still, she just stood there and was unable to move. So, I had a bit of a problem with that, to be honest. Once that was done, we saw that Anna regained the ability to walk again, and she walked into the room where her baby was, seeing as though the demon that she birthed and was holding was no longer around. When she picked up her baby, it was a human, and she also had the Oscar on the side on the shelf. This almost symbolized her now having everything that she ever wanted. She got her baby, plus she also got her Oscar. She could be a mother, but she could also prove that she had great success in her career too. Going against what the Ravenheads said in the previous episodes, where women were expected to stay at home and be the mothers whilst the men go out and have success. There was an ominous, fearful look that was in Anna's eyes as the camera then moved back, almost like she had just come out of some kind of nightmare, which she had. But it felt like it almost implied that Anna could be the new leader of this coven, which now only had her within it. This was due to her wearing the wings on her head and also having the green shoes on, following her accepting them and joining them. It felt like the show was trying to make us think that, but I genuinely don't think that's a plausible ending. With the spider coming out of the crib and Dana squashing it, the first time that we saw a spider was in the very first episode when it was on Anna's head following her seeing Dr. Hill for one of the first times and starting that process of having a baby. So the spider being killed almost symbolized and marked an end to the connection to the demon and the baby being normal and not the purest demon that they could be. So, yeah, the ending was definitely a weird one, and despite it being relatively simple, there's complexities within it that just didn't really need to be there. So it is a shame because the ending of the episode and the killing of Siobhan kind of undone all of the work that the show had done in building up the mystery and power that these Ravenheads had. Who was Siobhan? Well, we never actually found out who Siobhan was other than the fact that she was just literally Siobhan Corbin and she made her own rules. She called herself the Otter and said that she ran the world. The definition of an auteur is a film director who influences their films so much that they rank as their author, and with it being a French word, when it's translated into English it quite literally translates to author. So I suppose Siobhan viewed the world as her own kind of movie, and she wanted to dictate the future of it. Hence the mission that all of the Ravenheads were on. This was the aim of removing toxic masculinity, making deals with women who wanted everything in the world, and then using them to hold babies for them and then recruit them. They essentially wanted to implement a new order of sisterhood and create a world in the way that Siobhan viewed it. It also turned out that Siobhan was Dex's mother, something that a few of us predicted a couple of episodes back, so I wasn't too surprised with that. There was a line that Dex's father said where he mentioned how he made Virginia raise Dex, and what could she say no? This was spoken with the intention of tying into the main, overarching theme of the show where women were viewed as lesser people to men by men in society. Anna's baby was also Shorn's due to the IVF treatment that Anna went under, so Anna was holding on to the baby for Siobhan, hence the demonic state that it had. With regards to the strange things that were also going on with Anna, this was all led by Shorn and the other ravenheads. The dolls that she kept finding with the broken pieces and disfigurements were being placed there by them and were almost acting as voodoo dolls or as hints of what was going to happen to her. Plus, Siobhan also had her eye on Anna for a long time in order to ensure that she was the right person to carry the demon that she was eventually going to give birth to. Shorn planted herself at a meeting for women that were struggling to have children in 2019, and that was when she first introduced herself to Anna. It was actually on the day that she was going to audition for her role in The Otter, so that was the day that the first part of the plan came into play. The show didn't provide a lot of clarity around the demonic identity of Shorn, but maybe they didn't because they wanted it to be more of a mystery, which I can kind of understand. But equally, at the same time, clarity is always nice, especially considering each season is just a one-and-done type thing. My review of the episode. I thought this episode was a finale of two halves. As I said at the start, I actually really enjoyed the first half. The moments in the ambulance, the symbolism of holding on to the Oscar the entire time, the panic, the fear, the bold move in killing off Kamala and Dex in the way that they were killed. It felt like the American Horror Story of old. It was gory, bloody, and like a night that you just couldn't escape from. I also thought that Emma Roberts did a great job in this opening section too. In fact, the entire episode, you could tell that she was one of the more seasoned performers in this cast because the moment that Cara Delevingne started speaking, it just became stale and it felt like a performance that was being deliberately amplified. The whole scene with Siobhan meeting Dr. Hill and promising him success in the fertility clinic world, if he did, as she said, felt a bit shoehorned in. It was about a minute long and it felt like it was done to just answer the question of how he came to be involved, which just felt a bit unnatural. When Ivy was killed, that was a moment of shock that I didn't expect, but again, it brought out the bad acting that Cara Delevingne had. I don't mean to be so harsh on Cara Delevingne, but I did genuinely think that she was the weakest performer by far throughout this show, and it was just so hard to avoid because she was in it quite a lot. The whole thing about Shorn tasking Ivy with killing her son and it being a test just felt a bit ridiculous, to be honest. It didn't feel convincing and I didn't buy into it because we never truly understood what these people were like. So it just felt like a plot device to enable Ivy to be killed in that moment because that's just what they decided that they wanted to do. The final half of this episode was where I think it went a bit wrong for me. The short 30-minute runtime without commercials is something that just meant that everything that was built up into the first half had to be rushed through in the second because they didn't have that long left to provide clarity and closure, and they were unsuccessful in doing that. This season of the show had its ups and downs, that's for sure, but I think this one does sit quite low when looking back at the previous seasons that the show has produced. Murphy announced that American Horror Story was commissioned to go through until season 13. So I'm hoping that the next season of the show tries to go back to its roots a bit more, aims to get a strong cast involved, and has a gripping, compelling, dark story that we're all invested in. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. So, there you have it, American Horror Story Delicate Episode 9 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on AHS Delicate, then click on the card in the top corner. I've covered every episode of the show, so if you want to see breakdowns on all of them, then head over to the channel where there's an entire playlist. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.